Okay, I'm going to use this comment as an example to make a very, very broad and a little bit damning of a point. But I don't want you to attack this lady because I know that this came from a good place, but I want to make a very large point. So this is a disclaimer for what will appear to be a barn burner, but I promise it's not meant to be. So there's actually a lot of self-awareness in this comment. You're kind of admitting that you not only were apathetic in your younger years, but that the consequences of that apathy are being seen and felt by everybody. So I appreciate that you can say that, and I want everybody to give you a thumbs up for that because it's very awesome of you. But the next part I realize is the overcorrection that happens, and I've noticed this in so many ways, especially as a teacher, like in the way Gen X parents parent their students, which I could spend hours talking about. But it's this need to overcorrect, to make it better, which is kind of forcing something on your kids, which puts them in the position to have to either double down and accept it or reject it, which I think is a lot of the stress and confusion and frustration that is present within Gen Z. Because Gen X's apathy was actually born out of the exact same anger that millennials feel, that Gen Z feels. We all recognize that this system was fucked and broken and wasn't working. The second the Berlin Wall fell, the collective purpose of the nation that had existed for 50, 60 years was gone. And America did not have a collective purpose any longer, but we had a very effective system built to defend the world from evil that was now gone. So we had to gear shift really quick, and that left us all with a sense of confusion, and that was when Gen X was coming of age. So they entered into an America without a purpose, and no parental figures present in their life up until that point to have provided them any sense of what a purpose should be, should look like, or how to obtain one. They did their best. They made some bitchin' music. Pop culture from Gen X, top fucking notch. Political influence, less so, unless you can unpack the political influences of pop culture. But again, hours of conversation in a different direction. But this need to overcorrect what they have reflected on in their own life that they failed and have pushed onto their kids has made their kids just as sort of lost and hoping that they picked the right random thing. Because it's a little blind leading the blind if you think about it. You had no guidance and now are tasked with guiding the future. And gosh, that's gotta be hard. I feel for you, but you're not doing a good job even though I know you really wanted to. This is where everyone's gonna think I'm being an asshole, and maybe I am, but Gen X are bad parents. And I know you don't mean to be, and I don't mean that in a malicious way, and I don't mean it to say that you don't love your children, you don't care for your children, and you don't want what's best for your children. You want all those things. You are just terrible at helping them obtain those things. And again, I'm sure some of you are fantastic, but I mean as a collective. So look at your peers, all right? If you think I'm not talking about you, you know somebody I'm talking about if you're being honest, so please don't yell at me. But it's not your fault you're bad parents because you had bad parents. So boomers out there, don't yell at me. You know by this point you were shit parents. You've got 3 generations telling you were shit parents. And again, it's not your fault. I'm not saying you don't love your children. I'm saying you weren't taught how to parent because nobody was taught how to parent. So nobody knows what they're doing and everybody fucking sucks. And kids, no matter what generation they're in as children, sort of want to know they're doing it right. So you can characterize that as they want to make their parents happy, they want to succeed in school, insert variable here to, am I doing it right? So Gen Z is kind of looking around and they're coming of age in a little bit of a tumultuous situation, right? The pandemic changed the world and a lot of us are still in denial about that being true. We don't want to accept the fact that the pandemic has forever changed the world. And a lot of the anger, especially on the right, especially in the MAGA crowd, is just the resistance to, I don't want things to be different. I don't want this inconvenience to have fundamentally changed things moving forward. I liked the way things were. Sorry, sometimes in life you break your leg and need to learn how to walk on a new leg. But what Gen X has done with their kids is sort of telling them that your leg is broken, but it's society's fault that you broke your leg. So don't really worry about your leg. Just fuck society and yell at everybody because they did it wrong. And point out that they did it wrong, but you're not offering them any solutions on how to fix it either, which means they are just angry, they are just frustrated, and they're either having to all by themselves come up with ideas on how to fix it, or are falling victim to these algorithms that are manipulating them to channel that anger into various causes, conflicts, video game subcultures, whatever it may be. But again, none of this is productive. It's just a different flavor of counterproductive. We have all managed to reach the point where we realize this shit is fucked. We have all gotten there. We all got there from different paths for different reasons, but the thesis is this shit is fucked. But none of us have been offered any solutions on how to fix it except millennials. And I know this is going to sound like I'm bumping up millennials. Millennials suck in a lot of ways, but they're also stupid enough to have all gone to college and learned a lot of things. And for every millennial bro, there's a millennial nerd that like read all of the books the millennial bro copied so he wouldn't get kicked out of his frat kind of thing. So you kind of get the idea. So there are people out there that have ideas, but they've been beaten down for 20 years and been told that their ideas are either overly optimistic or overly pessimistic. If you come up with an idea that you think, wow, with a few little tweaks, we could fix Social Security into perpetuity, then you're just overly idealistic. That'll never happen. The system's too broken. We'll use like it doesn't have to be, is the point. And then there's the overly pessimistic, where it's all fucked. We know there's no point in getting involved. Burn it down. Storm the Capitol. Whatever. Also counterproductive. We have a good skeleton of a system. We have a good foundation for what governments can be. But it's just like we haven't done anything with it in 50 years. Like, we haven't even thought about amending the Constitution in 50 years. And shit has changed in 50 years, and we're operating under a very old government. And there's a lot of criticism about, like, how American government is structured, and you can go into that all day. But the beauty of it is that it was so basic in its functionality and so amendable in its functionality that it was meant to survive in perpetuity because it was forever changing. Like, the idea of living under the longest living constitution is the fact that it's alive. It's not a dead document that you have to refer to and interpret based on the 19th century meaning, Samuel Alito. That was not the spirit of the founders. The spirit of the founders is this is an imperfect system built on compromise that reflects the values and necessary compromise of the time, but we've provided you a means through which to amend as necessary to compromise throughout time, because in a diverse democracy, compromise is necessary, and we need to learn how to have the discussions that lead to compromise in a way that isn't born from fear. Because if a scared group of people over here and a scared group of people over here who have been given no instructions on how to resolve their fears come face to face and in the government with how to address this fear, the government tends to shut down a lot because nobody's listening to each other and everyone's just yelling at each other. But if you recognize this system's broken and you follow the roads back to where they go, you can find the solutions more easily, because the solutions to the problems we're all mad about are very easy to fix if we can all start having the same conversation instead of spending our entire political lives figuring out who is to blame for our problems rather than seeing how to fix them. I can answer who's to blame for it. It's Ronald Reagan and the policies that changed the economy to work for wealthier people than poorer people. See, I gave you a person and an actual thing to fix all at once. Aren't I wonderful? I'm a good teacher. I'm gonna go play Sims now. I hope that answered your question.